Well, it's a big decision for her. That is quoting. That's a deep quote. A deep quote.
What?
A deep cut quote from a childhood favorite of mine. I'm not going to say what it is because I just want to let people either recognize it or not. But whatever.
Okay, I have no idea.
Oh my god.
Are you going through a major change?
Yeah. Actually, there's a clue if you're watching the thing on YouTube right here for where that quote came from. This is hard to do. How did Vanna White
Exactly.
do this? Well, it's a big decision for her. Yes, I am going through a big change. Yes, and I woke up this morning with a very interesting epiphany.
Yeah, do you want to intro us before you give us your epiphany? If we're officially starting.
Okay. Welcome to the True North podcast, where, oh my god, I almost said where everything is spiritual and nothing's not. I don't even know what that means. I don't even know what that means. Welcome to the True North podcast, where two practicing light workers get together for an hour every week to continue an ongoing conversation about wholeness and healing so you can live as your true north. Can you tell where my brain is right now? It's not here. Where you can live as your true self and follow your true north. I'm Ryan. God damn it.
And I'm Abby. And
thank you.
Excited to hear about your epiphany now.
Oh. It's not even that big of an epiphany. It's just that I noticed that there are two chakras that are kind of like linked in an interesting way. How I've heard it said that there's a space between your heart chakra and your throat chakra that's like the center of your true voice, which is interesting because I have a friend who's like, if they had a favorite color, it would be teal, which is like what would sit right between the blue and green of those two chakras.
Is that like in your collarbone?
Right there in your clavicle.
Yeah. Okay.
Like the center of your true voice, which is like your soul's voice, not your human voice. And that person just happens to be like also navigating what it's like to use their voice. So I was like, oh, that's an interesting interaction between those two chakras. And this morning I was like, I was realizing I've been doing some voiceover work, or no, I'll be honest, I've been sending out some voiceover auditions. I haven't actually been doing the work yet, but it feels like it because you're still getting your mic set up and you're sending off files and stuff. And I've realized that to get a more rich sound in my voice, I need to do the thing in my diaphragm that you do when you're singing and you want a better support system, which starts down here in the middle of your abdomen. And I realized that that's where your solar plexus chakra is. And so there was this link between like your throat chakra and your solar plexus, where the solar plexus gives support to the thing that the throat chakra is doing. Which I thought, I don't know. I said the word epiphany, but it's more of just a connection I made, which I'm still kind of like mulling over what that means, what it could mean, what you can explore there. So anyway.
Interesting.
I thought so.
Yeah, very much so. So today we're talking about psychological safety, being that safe person for someone, but what that means in terms of if you find yourself in an abusive relationship. Is that what we decided to talk about today? Yeah,
we decided like 4 episodes ago that we needed to circle back around and clarify that. Because it all came from, I don't remember what episode it was. I'll put it in the show notes. But we were talking about being a safe place in a relationship. And then almost as soon as we hit stop on the recording, I realized that people in relationships could take this and then point to their spouse and be like, you should be a safe place for me. Mm-hmm. Instead of doing what I would prefer people do, which is go inward and say, how can I be a safe place for them, right?
Absolutely.
And so then I started thinking of like relational dynamics where being a safe place for the other person is especially difficult or trying or not safe, ironically. And I wanted to kind of unpack that because I feel like sometimes when we talk about this stuff, it's so conceptual that sometimes the things that we end up settling on there are layers to it that our conclusions don't really hit all the time. Like should you still be a safe place for a person that you're in a relationship with if they are the abusive half of an abusive relationship?
Sure. Right. We do say things with a certain assumption.
Right. Or we were talking about mirrors and how, like in our call 2 nights ago with the tribe, we were talking about how things that happen to you or things in your life can mirror you back to you. And then the question was asked, like, what if the thing that you're looking at that mirrors a part of you back to you isn't actually mirroring something about you, but something that you learned or picked up from somewhere? And kind of like, and I thought, well, shit, like we didn't really incorporate that into the framework at all. So I'm just kind of like digging and picking apart. And I had a conversation with one of our tribe members about just the idea of being in your own business, right? Like, like we kind of set it up with this binary where you're either in your business or you're in someone else's business, and the best place to be is your business, and don't be in their business, right? But then we kind of picked it apart a little bit and realized that there are kind of two things that could fuel you being in someone else's business. One of which is your own fears and acting out of your own traumas and insecurities that come from your childhood that you need to work through. And those are the whole, like, I'm not going to do this because if I do, they'll do that and then they will hurt me. And that's the kind of being in other people's business that we've been saying to stay away from. But then, like, there's another type of being in other people's business where you just have a standard for how human dignity works and operates. And when you see somebody not operating that way, you kind of feel compelled to not be okay with that. Like, that's what the whole Black Lives Matter movement is. We're being in the cop's business. We're looking at what one person is doing to another person and having a reaction to that and doing something about it, instead of going full zen, being like, wow, this is really triggering for me. How can I rearrange and do my inner work so that I can watch somebody, die a slow, painful death over the course of 9 minutes under the knee of a cop and just not be bothered by it because I've risen above and I'm staying in my own business. Like, nobody's doing that. Well, I guess some people are doing it, but I don't even know if that's the right answer to that. I don't know that the right answer is to recognize that you've been triggered and look into your childhood trauma and figure out why you're being triggered and get to a place where it's not a problem for you anymore. And I feel like it should be a problem. It is a problem. And when people adopt that problem, they act on it so that eventually it won't be a problem. And that's not a bad thing, So I guess I'm kind of rambling because I'm the more I investigate this with myself and with our audience members and people who are kind of like joining this conversation with us, there are times to be in other people's business. Yes.
No, I disagree.
Okay, so why? What's
because what you were just saying is when in the situation of you see the cop that's abusing another person and the other person, in this case, the African American man, George, passed away. Sitting in your business does not mean that you just find out what's triggering you and then let that be okay and let that be enough and be at peace with it. Staying in your business is asking the question, what can I control in this situation? You cannot change it, but you can help make sure that it doesn't happen in the future. And what can you control within? How can you help? That's staying in your business. But sitting in somebody else's business is allowing yourself to be triggered by someone else's behavior. So it's almost like two separate things, but staying in somebody else's business is not, you don't ever want to stay in somebody else's business, because what you're trying to say then is that you are wanting to control that cop or any other cop that has that mentality. That's what would be staying in the other person's business.
And I'm struggling with that because my first knee-jerk reaction is, but we do want to control it. We want to force it to be stopped. We want to prevent this from ever happening again.
This is true.
An element. There's an element of exerting control, right? Like, we need to be voting and working on passing legislation and consequences and body cams and just like digging into the institutional racism that has made this into a normal thing. And that's all a matter of exerting control over the whole system to make it more what you want it to be.
But that's over your control. That's staying in your business by being an activist, by being a lobbyist, by being a voice, by, helping support the victims in those situations. But at the end of the day, you cannot be in that cop's business. He is going to choose to do it or not do it. Your business is to get involved enough to try to make sure that we don't hire those kind of people to protect us. But ultimately, that man is not going to change, and there's nothing we are going to do that we can do that will make him act any differently. That has to come from him.
Is it a bad thing then to want him to change anyway?
No, but I think that's, again, sitting in his business.
So
you
is
are
it a
wanting
bad
him
thing
to change.
to
Well,
sit in? Is it a like? Let's say that it is defined as sitting in his business. That's why I'm saying I think maybe there are times that sitting in other people's business is called for, because I do want that specific cop to not kill any other people, especially people of color, and that would require him to, well, I mean, or any cop for that matter.
but then you're seeing him through the lens of angry eyes. You're not meeting him where he is. What are the reasons that he even did that in the first place? What are his values? What are his upbringing? For example, I've told this story so many times. I grew up in a very whitewashed community in rural Nebraska. We did not have a single person of color. And when I was in high school, we had a family, an African-American family that moved in down the street in a rental house. And we were told to walk down a different street. That was my first lesson on African-American people. So if that's all I ever went off of, and I didn't know better, and I've always been a person that's questioned everything. My entire life, I've questioned everything. But some people don't, and especially kids, if you're told by your parents, that's what you start to believe. So if you see him as through the lens of you are wanting him to change, I understand that. Like, I don't want this injustice to happen to other people either. But if we aren't meeting him where he is and trying to understand how he got there in the first place, then we're just sitting in his business expecting him to do something that he might not be capable of doing.
What do we do with that understanding once we gain it, though?
Then that's when like where I can control, that's when I start educating. I start educating massive groups of people in the way that I know how, that I can do, that starts to teach people that, everyone is equal and whatever that looks like, I'm trying to think of specific examples, but so many times I think people are the way they are because they have faulty wiring from some preconditioned event, from their parents, from the place they grew up in. And so they lack the exposure and the education and don't see people as they are. But I think, if we just look at the police officer with angry eyes, it's like we're fighting fire with fire. We're fighting hate with hate.
I feel like it's more fighting hate with hurt. Like, anger is always a cover up for something, right? And I feel like there are a lot of emotions that manifest as anger but aren't anger. And I do feel anger about not just the murder of George Floyd or any number of the other people who aren't as popular right now who have recently been killed by cops, or the fact that, I'm angry about all of those things. And so the question is, like, what's underneath that, right? And that's my work to do. But if you're fueled by anger and you affect change, real change in the direction of fewer people getting unnecessarily murdered by cops. Unnecessarily. When is it ever necessary for a cop? This is even my own learned wiring still continuing to come out. So if you're affecting change in the direction of cops not killing people, and that's fueled by anger, is that worse than making the same changes fueled by trying to understand the cops who are doing the killing?
No,
like, does it really change anything if you're still moving our society closer to people not dying at the hands of cops?
Well, I think you can use your anger as power. I just think you have to know and understand your anger and not project your anger on the person doing the violence, because that is, by using your anger for power to motivate you and get you passionate enough to make movement and action, then I think you are staying in your own business. But you have to understand that anger, and you have to know when you are using it for power or just projecting it. And then you mentioned, is it just a cover up for hurt? Well, if it hurt you, then that's where I would keep doing that layers of why. Why did it hurt you? Is it, and then ultimately do you get to it's because I didn't do anything about it, or I haven't done anything about it. And so are you really just mad at yourself? And again, so that would be staying in your business. But there is never a time when we should be in somebody else's business. Even in this situation, I think you just staying in your own business means, yes, something gets done. It's not like we just say, oh, okay, I'm just going to stay in my business over here and ignore the problem. And we certainly can have the desire not to want this to happen. That is empathy for our community at large. We don't want this to happen. I'm a victim of sexual assault. I do not want that to happen ever to another woman. But that doesn't mean that I can go around just projecting my anger at every man that has been charged, right, with rape and sexual assault. So, because it doesn't change anything. I don't know, I'm just rambling and talking in circles, but
so going back to the abusive relationship thing that started this whole thing off, if you are, I think we need to talk for a second about what makes an abusive relationship, because you think of abusive relationship and you think of a man hitting a woman, right? Like that's just kind of like what's been programmed into our psyche, and it doesn't have to be physical hitting. It can be emotional abuse, it can be psychological abuse, it could be if someone is like giving you emotional whiplash and being manipulative and playing mind games, that's also a form of abuse, and sometimes it can help to just name the fact that you're in an abusive relationship. But so I just wanted to name that, like, this goes beyond people who are just getting hit, because a lot of people will they'll toy with the idea, am I in an abusive relationship? But then they'll be like, oh, well, they're not hitting me, so obviously it's not, right? But it could be,
And emotional abuse is just as destructive and just as powerful as physical abuse.
Right. If not more. Because it sticks with you longer. Like, your body will heal.
Yeah. Right.
At least it'll heal on its own. And so when I talk about emotional abuse or abusive relationships, I just want to encourage people not to turn off because they don't think it applies to them. So, but in that case, if you're acting to keep yourself safe, because the other person's obviously not a safe place for you, and that's like your second line of defense. Like, ideally, the other person should be a safe place for you, and you should be a safe place for them. But if they're not a safe place for you, then someone's got to be safe, and so you make yourself safe. And doesn't that necessarily mean you're in your partner's business? Because you will cater what you do and say and don't say, and how you act and show up and don't show up around whether or not the other person might become abusive in response. But and is that not staying in their business? And also, is that not an okay thing to do? Like, obviously, you want to try to either fix it or get out. But if those both don't seem to be options at the moment, then what do you have left?
Well, if you have to stay in their business in order to stay safe, then it's an unhealthy relationship.
Right.
And it should not continue. Because you are not able to live in your love and light. You are not able to be loved conditionally if you have to constantly protect yourself, and if you are not able to be a safe person, because that will be taken advantage of. And I don't believe that there's not an option, because it is a matter of choice. I understand the choice is hard. Right. I have been okay. I could probably count on two hands the number of abusive relationships I've been in that have been both kinds, physical and emotional. And every time I knew I had a choice. So when I say this, I know how ridiculous this sounds, having experienced this myself. But I always knew that I had a choice to go or stay. But the choice to go was always way too hard for me to make and too unbearable. And so I didn't. I stayed. And I completely understand why people stay. So I think this is tricky. This is really tricky. Because if I try to put this, like saying this to myself when I was in that situation, I would just think you're a weirdo and I would leave. Like if I basically said, this is not a psychologically safe place for you. This is an unhealthy situation. You have the choice to get out and you need to choose you and get out. I would not have listened to myself.
Right.
So until that's able to happen, I'm guessing this is what you're going to say. What do you do in the meantime until you are able to make that choice? And that would be, you cannot be a safe person for an abuser.
Right.
Because it makes you unsafe. It
For
opens
yourself.
you up. Yes. And that is not staying in your business. Ultimately, at the end of the day, if you're making the choice to stay in that abusive relationship, you have to keep your own psychological safety. Being in your business is you've got to turtle, cover yourself with your shell until you're able to make the choice to get out of it. Because I know that's kind of one question, like how do you be this safe, open person when it makes you very vulnerable? And I even say this, there's people on let's look outside of even abusive relationships. There's people kind of in our periphery, colleagues that we work with, acquaintances, and those aren't necessarily safe people. We don't have to be safe people for them. We have to meet them where they are. We have to sit in love and light, but I don't think that we need to be safe when we don't really know that they are willing to give that back.
Right.
And so it's like things that get shared within our tribe get shared because it is a very safe place for everybody to do so. Where if you are triggered by something, there's the trust and there's the love there that whatever is triggering you, you're able to say that hurt, and then we can talk about it and the other person not be offended or be reactive to it. And so ultimately then the goal is, by what we're saying, by living in your true north self, is you completely surround yourself with all the people that are that safe tribe for you. And everybody that isn't safe, you continue to pray for them to come to their highest good, but ultimately that's on them. And if they don't get there, then you have to keep yourself safe and keep them out of your tribe. Love them, but keep them out of your tribe. Right.
And it could be just a matter of I think one of the things that we've we just kind of forgot to mention was, because we're all talking about being safe for other people, but your number one responsibility is to be safe for you.
Yes.
You need to make sure that you are taken care of. And if the people in your life aren't taking care of you, you have to take care of you, and you have to find people who are. And that can be a very simple conversation to have with the people who are in your life and are not taking care of you, are not being safe. I'm talking your parents, I'm talking your siblings, I'm talking your coworkers, I'm talking especially your significant other. Like that's a way you could frame that conversation, where you're just like non-accusatorily, non-judgmentally saying, I don't feel safe with you, but I need to feel safe. And that requires me to put up walls. If you don't want those walls, be safe for me.
Right.
And if you're not going to do that, then be okay with the walls, even if that means eventually I cut you out of my life.
Yep.
And that's still a hard conversation to have.
Absolutely.
But it comes from a place of empowerment and a place of personal strength and personal integrity. And sometimes that's what you need in order to just work up the gumption to even have the conversation and stick to your guns after having said that out loud to another human being. And we kind of missed, because one of the first pieces of feedback I got when we were talking about being safe is well, what happens when someone points a finger and says, I heard on this podcast that you should be safe for me? And then it became, the answer is well, you need to work on yourself to be a safe place for them to be a safe place for you. It all starts with you deciding to be safe, but then if the other person's an abuser, you don't owe it to them to be safe for them.
Correct.
And so there's this kind of weird cycle of, it's almost like a feedback loop, and where does it start and where does it end? And I think one key component that we just don't talk about, not just we, but people in general, is what to do when you realize you might be the abusive part of an abusive relationship. That is a tough pill to swallow. but I have seen it happen. Unlike my own story with my own dad.
Correct.
He hit us.
Yep.
And then he had a realization that he hit us. And then he apologized to us for hitting us and promised never to hit us again. All on his own. Well, I'm not going to say on his own. I think he had like a divine experience that there weren't words for. Well, there were 6 words.
But he came to it.
Journal. But he came to it on his own.
Right.
And he realized he was an abuser. And he took it upon himself to realize that, recognize it, own it, and stop. I know it's possible.
Absolutely.
But that's not something that we really ever encourage or even talk about. We don't ever say, don't be abusive. We say, run away from the abuser. Point your finger at the abuser. Accuse the abuser. That person's toxic. You need to get away from them. But what about the person who's an abuser? You know, like, sometimes it's worth asking yourself, am I in an abusive relationship because I am being abusive to the person I'm in partnership with? And just asking that question, developing the habit of asking that question can do wonders. And not even like, I mean, I like to take an idea and try it on for size and just spend like a set amount of time assuming it's true, just to see what assumptions come from those assumptions and how well they fit into how I understand the world, right? And sometimes it sticks and spreads roots, and sometimes it doesn't connect anything, it doesn't make sense, and then I let it go. And I'm learning, like, one of my favorite quotes is from Aristotle, where he said, the mark of an educated mind is the ability to entertain a thought without accepting it. And that's what I'm talking about here, is just entertain the idea that you might be engaging in some abusive tendencies, behaviors, actions, patterns, whatever. Not to feel bad about it, not to judge yourself, not to just go down this rabbit hole of self-shame, but you might find something that you can use to then explain why your partner is distant from you, why they are closed off from you, why you don't seem to maybe be getting out of the relationship what you had hoped you had gotten, because you might be abusive. And again, like, no judgment, no condemnation, just fucking fix it and figure out why and who's teaching you those patterns. Where did you learn them? Do that work. And then, like, all of a sudden, what you're doing is you're working on being a safe place for the person. Because a lot of times we think we're a safe place and we're not. And we never ask ourselves, am I a safe place? And we don't ever ask them, am I a safe place for you? And if you're not safe, they're not going to tell you, you're not safe for me. Because that's not a safe thing to say to somebody who's not a safe place. You know?
So how do you put this in terms of the police officer? He's an abuser.
Yeah, well, I mean, to take everything I just said and map it onto it, he should be fucking asking himself, why did I kill that man? What made me think that was okay? What made me think that was justified? Why in the world? I think he should be asking himself why and where it came from. The same questions that you advise that we should be engaging with. You know, like, what world did he grow up in that taught him that was okay? And maybe that is a way to I think he should be asking himself those same questions and doing that work. I think everybody with a gun as a part of their vocation should be asking themselves those questions. I really do. I mean, I and sometimes it's just a good relational strategy. I have an example from a few weeks ago where my wife was in some relational turmoil with some other people, and I had the personal opinion that she wasn't showing up as her best. And she had certain ways that she very directly expressed to me that she would have liked me to show that I was a safe place for her, because she didn't feel like anybody in her life was really a safe place. And of all people, the person that you're partnered with and live with and have a kid with should be the person that can be safe for you. And so she said, she just kind of like made the request, like, here's how I can know that you're safe for me right now. And instead of meeting her where she was at, I pointed to those other relationships and was like, I need to see that you're working to own your shit and repair these things, because it matters to me, and how you're showing up there matters to me. And I don't know that I can even give you this until I see that you're taking those steps. And I like almost held hostage my willingness to be a safe place for her in the way that she asked for me to, until she did what I wanted, until she met my conditions.
So you sat in her
for how
business.
She should be. I was so in her business. And we have a marriage counselor who spent like 90 minutes just tearing into me about it. And what made the whole thing messy is that boundaries are really hard for me, and I'm not very practiced in setting them or keeping them. It's a very new skill for me, and I'm very much a beginner. And standing up for myself or inserting my opinions about anything at all, owning my contribution to a relationship in anything other than just the bad stuff, like just having a presence, is all stuff that I'm learning. And I was putting it into practice, and I was trying to reclaim my autonomy. And like you said, say, what can I control? I can control my actions. I can choose not to participate in this thing that I think is unhealthy. And so there was mixed in with me being in her business and choosing not to be a safe place for her until she met my qualifications. Mm-hmm. Mixed in with that was also me moving in the direction of my own personal growth as a human. And so it was both justifiable and critiquable.
Your behavior was justifiable?
I feel like practicing the art of making my own decisions with what happens in my own life and not letting someone else dictate that for me is justifiable.
Yeah.
That's the lens through which I saw what I was doing. You're asking me to do this thing. I can't in good conscience do this thing. And that's my choice with my life. And I feel like that feels like health, even in relationship. But what I was keeping from her, what I was withholding from her, knowingly and actively, was making myself a safe place for her. And so that's tricky because regardless of what I did, you could look at it and say that was the right thing, or you could look at it and say that was the wrong thing, depending on what lens you're looking at it through and whose lens you're looking at it through. And so in that moment, the thing that kind of brought me to a place of restoration with her was asking myself, am I being the abusive half of this relationship right now? I'm withholding emotional safety from you until you become more like what I think you should be. Well, that's emotional abuse. That's being manipulative. That's like, no, I'm not going to be safe for you until you do X, Y, Z, until you become the person that I want you to be, instead of me just meeting you where you are and letting you be where you are and just being fucking safe because that's what I promised to do as your partner in life.
But that, to me, then what you're saying is that you were clearly triggered by whatever was happening
with her and those other people. That was me being in her business in the first place.
Well, yes, but the way you get back to it then is figure out why you are being so triggered. Why is it bothering you so much, and how, in what's happening, or how she's even showing up, and then withholding that safety from her.
But is it ever right to actively, knowingly, willingly withhold safety from your partner?
Only if that partner is abusing you and you're needing to keep yourself safe. If you're doing it in a manipulative way, absolutely not. Right. If you're doing it in the way that you described, then you are sitting in her business. You are not loving your partner.
Right.
Providing safety for someone literally has to start with what we already said. If you are a safe person for yourself, then that means you are already sitting in your true north. So that's the frequency that you're putting off in order to be that safe person. It's almost like, I feel like we're saying you have to be safe for the other person, when really that's not it at all. It's like, if you become safe for yourself, that sort of attracts others that need the safety from you.
And it also empowers you to cut ties from the ones that aren't and don't show interest in being.
Yes, like, because if they threaten your safety, then that's those people. I mean, and this happens. I see so many unhealthy relationships because they are the very thing that should be happening, where you're be able to stay safe for yourself, which in turn then means you're safe for your partner. That is unconditional love. If you can both show up being very psychologically safe for each other in terms of you show up for yourselves, and then that's okay. Like, there's this unconditional bridge then between the two of you. And I don't see that often in relationships at all. And so I had a point to all this, but I think it has to start with you being psychologically safe for yourself, emotionally safe for yourself.
Yes.
And that's the only way that you can be safe for somebody else.
And this is a really good tool for doing that work. If you're interested in doing the work, is to ask yourself in what ways you're not.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, just like, yeah, I guess I'll just leave it there.
No, it
just
is.
ask yourself,
Absolutely.
how am I not being safe for myself? And how am I not being safe for the other person? And if you're not shoring up that thing for yourself, you may look to the other person to be safe for you. And then you may put that responsibility on them. And it's like that then if you don't feel safe, it's their fault.
Right.
When, no, you're also in charge of, taking care of your own thing,
yes.
know? And should they be a safe place for you? Yeah, I guess because you're in a relationship and that's what you agreed to, then sure, that's something that they should be, but it's not something that you should hold over them.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not going to be, then you need to be. And just like you ask that question of yourself, ask that question of the other person. Am I being safe for the other person?
Here's an example from my experience. So there's a family member that was abusive to me when I was younger, and we cut ties for a very long time. It's one of the reasons why I spent my 20s very, very angry. And then when I finally had to realize, I came to forgiveness on two ways. I forgave that person because what was done was done. And I was continuing to live it every day, which was giving it power, which was making me a victim. And the second thing I did was forgive myself. So I found peace within myself. Fast forward to today, this person is now a lot more active in my life than they have been in a very long time. So I have a lot of interaction with this person. I still do not feel safe with this person, even though that's a door that's been closed and I don't, they no longer have that kind of power over me to make it happen. So I think it's just never going to happen again. But that doesn't mean that I feel safe. So I will naturally put up a wall when I go see this person. I put up an emotional wall around this person. But it's not this wall that's like brick and bulletproof. It's almost like my bubble wall or a glass wall where I can meet that person where they are. I can try to see what they're doing from their perspective and what they have available to them or what they don't, and it not affect me. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to be open and free and very comfortable sharing parts of me or sharing experiences with you that make me feel too vulnerable, because you're still not a safe person. So there is, what we are saying is like, you don't have to be safe for everybody. That's not right. The point. The point though is to meet those people where they are, try to see positive intent. And this is where like enlightenment falls, is literally just seeing everybody is inherently good, until they prove otherwise. And if they're proving otherwise, then there's something clearly broken with them. And that is not my fault, right? Mm-hmm. Might be my problem in terms of I want to make sure there's no more Trayvon Martins and George Floyds and everybody else, kid, adult, female, male, whoever. No one should die for the very wrong reasons. So I can make that my problem by wanting to change that and empathizing like with the world and like this is not our best selves, but that doesn't mean that we have to necessarily be vulnerable to those people.
So I guess what it really comes down to is just learn to recognize, right? Like I think we talked, I don't know if it was on the podcast or on one of our calls, but there have been a couple of things that have been pointed out to me lately that I thought were bad things about me or things that needed to get fixed. And then I had voices in my life like yours who was like, no, maybe it's not a bad thing. Just maybe be an observer to it. Mm-hmm. And when it comes down to safe places and abusive patterns, I think what the drain that we're really circling here is become an observer to those. Mm-hmm. Become an observer to who is not safe for you and do what you need to do to make yourself safe as long as you choose to continue to be around them, while evaluating how often you really think you should be around them and understanding that it is your choice. Sometimes a hard one, but it's still your choice. And also be an observer to how safe or unsafe you are being to other people.
Absolutely.
And don't, still have compassion on yourself. Don't be all judgmental or down on yourself if you realize that you're not safe for somebody. Just use that information to start becoming safe.
Well, and the thing is, if you're being unsafe for someone else, there's a reason. There's a reason that you are being triggered and that ugliness is coming out. And so asking yourself that question is, like you said, put on your observer hat and just figure out why. And that may take, a counselor to help you kind of dive into some of your old conditioning and some of your own traumas that are neurologically wired that make you operate in that way. Like, it's not a fault thing. There is a reason people make those choices.
Right.
We aren't inherently bad. Babies do not come out thinking about killing people. It's just not possible. So somewhere along the way, wiring got messed up, right? And the dark wolf, like we talked about last time, far outweighs the light wolf. And so people make the choices they do. But I think that's great. Really, just like that self-inquiry. I love what you're saying there. It's just start asking yourself, am I safe for myself? Am I safe for my loved ones?
Yes. And then use that information to compare it to how you feel would be the best thing for you to do. Now, the thing that's tricky here is if two people are in a relationship and both of them are abusive or both of them are unsafe, then you get stuck in this negative feedback loop of they're not safe, so I have to be safe for myself and put up walls. And then the person says, well, they're not safe, so I have to be safe. And then you have neither one of them, according to what we've said in the last 44 minutes, is responsible for being safe for the other person. If they're both manipulative or if they're both abusive.
Right, then they're not doing the real work.
Right, so then where does it start? Like, where does being safe for the other person start?
Well, I think it's this is tricky because it goes where I'm going to throw this word out there. Like it kind of follows that Buddhist path. Being safe for other people is literally not judging them, not seeing them as bad, so even if they're an abuser, we're not supposed to view that as a bad thing. It is what it is. You see it as just a thing, an experience that's happening. So this is a tricky answer because, like Byron Katie, for example, she I don't know, she was very angry for a very long time, just a very miserable, unhappy, angry person. And she had a major divine experience. And she's the one that kind of came up with this model called the work, where basically you can rewire every thought in your brain. But she doesn't see anything as negative. Like she will walk the worst streets in America and not flinch. And someone could mug her and she would say, sure, you can have my purse, right? And have no anger towards that person. It's fascinating. Loving What Is the book that kind of talks about that experience for anybody that wants to go kind of learn more about her, because I'm sort of botching who she really is. But my point being is, like, if you are saying to yourself, well, I'm not going to be safe for my partner because they're not going to be safe for me, well, that is not what we are saying. You are not doing the work if that's the thought that you are having, because you still should be able to have the thought that I can be psychologically safe for myself and experience the other person for exactly what they are and choose to stay in that or choose to not and leave.
And leave.
Right.
I think a key word that you just said there was not judging them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have seen so many relationships where one person would just judge the shit out of the other one and not even realize that what they were doing or saying was judgmental.
Mm-hmm.
And because judging someone makes them feel unsafe around you, they never told the other person, I feel judged by you. Even something as small as like rolling your eyes at them communicates so much.
Absolutely. It's very passive
And
aggressive.
another question is like, am I judgmental of you? And why? Why am I judgmental of you? But you have to be willing to go there. You have to be willing to answer yes to that question and not have it hit your ego so hard that it puts you in a bad mood. You know, like there's a level of security that you have to be able to engage with the idea that you may be part of the problem, that you may be exhibiting a hurtful or deleterious behavior pattern in your relationship. But you have to be able to engage with those and have to be able to arrive at an earnest yes to then break the pattern and stop judging them and stop even subtly communicating with even your body language or your tone or little comments you don't even realize you're making. Because that's also, sorry, you go ahead.
No, every time I have a client that starts judging someone, because it happens, it happens. It's because we tend to sit in negative bias. The first thing I start to ask is, what are you making that mean? And the reason why is because I believe that judgments are really just something about ourselves that we don't like, that we want to change, that we feel needs fixed. And when we see that represented in somebody else, then we place a judgment on it. And so, in fact, Byron Katie, the person I was just talking about, it's called Judge Your Neighbor Worksheet. And it literally is this entire, and she taught me this tool. It's incredibly fascinating and very powerful. But you fill out the worksheet basically judging everybody else. And where she's taking you is she's turning it right back around and holding the mirror up to yourself. And it's basically showing you that all these things that you're judging about other people, you're really judging about yourself. And so where did those come from? And if you fix those, then you no longer have the ability to judge another person for whatever it is,
Right.
that you're judging
Yeah,
for.
it is. And it's a good, like we're talking in our group about the 7 Essene mirrors, and I'm still doing some homework on it before really laying it all out, but that's one of the mirrors. What's one of their 7 mirrors. And I remember like what that reminds me of is when I was a kid, I was a really weird kid. Like I was a weird kid. And the one thing you could do to get made fun of by me the most readily was being weird. Because I felt judged for being weird. I don't know if I was judged or if I just projected onto people because I was just that insecure that if I show how weird I am, they're going to judge me. And then when I did, let my true colors show, even if someone reacted innocuously, I would still interpret that as them judging me. And so then when somebody else was weird, like outwardly weird, like wore weird clothes or just showed their quirks, but they owned it. Oh, that stung. And I was jealous. I was envious that they'd figured out how to crack the code about how to be unapologetic and confident in how weird,
Respectfully,
and
not
unique,
give a
and unique
shit.
they were. And then when people were like that, everybody loved them.
Yeah,
Everybody loved that one quirky, weird person who was just owning their quirk.
because that's their true north.
And I hated that person because I was like, I'm weirder than
couldn't
you
do
are.
it.
Right. And if I was showing my weirdness as much as you're showing yours, then they would love me more because I'm more weird. Like it was this weird, and so I would hate that person. I would try to tear him down. I would make fun of him. And it was all because at the end of the day, I was insecure about the fact that I didn't have the confidence to show how weird I was.
Right.
And so being weird was a thing that I judged really, really hard and avoided at all costs. I avoided looking weird or I would avoid doing things because I would think people would think I was weird. And then I would envy the people who did them and then make fun of them.
Yeah. Right.
And it was all just a mirror.
That's another good question to ask yourself. Not only am I safe,
am I judgmental of them and do I envy them?
right. Am I judgmental? And so then if I'm judgmental, what am I judgmental about? What is it about myself that is relatable?
Either I'm judging something about myself or I envy something about them.
Right. So like when I was mad at you,
oh yeah,
unnecessarily, I judged you, and so the thought that went out there is, let's just say, Ryan hurt me. That's a really, really simple example. So if I go through the process of, is that really true? Well, I don't know it to be true. I know my experience. I know I experienced it as hurt, but can I really say that Ryan hurt me? So then you kind of keep going through the process, and then at the end you do these turnarounds, and instead of it, Ryan hurt me, you replace it with I hurt Ryan. And then you can also replace it with I hurt me. And you can kind of look at all the turnarounds, and then the one that like stings, the one that seems more true than Ryan hurt me is typically the one. And for me, that was I hurt me. That's the turnaround for me, that I realized I was hurting myself, and you basically were pointing that out. And so because I didn't like that I was hurting myself, I didn't want to own that. So I made it your fault, and I got mad at you, and I said Ryan is hurting me. So you see,
yes.
so
if someone does that on their partner or on a coworker or a boss, you're judging them
because there's something
you can go down that train of thought. Like take the sentence, turn it into a sentence about how you really feel, and then flip it around on yourself and see how it fits.
Yeah. Sometimes it's the opposite. Like sometimes it might be I hurt Ryan instead of Ryan hurt me. But in this case, that wasn't true. I didn't feel like I had hurt you because I didn't say anything.
Right.
Maybe my actions hurt you by shutting down and not being grateful for your friendship to express that to me. But what felt more true to me is that I was hurting me. And that's the thing, is most of the times we don't want to own our own shit because it's so much easier to blame somebody else. Because if we own it, we now can't not do something about it.
Right. Or just live in a bunch of guilt that we're not doing anything about it, and knowingly project that onto people, and then you feel shitty about yourself in the process.
And then that really makes you an asshole.
We're still riding the coattails of our last episode for our asshole quota. We said that. So I wanted to count up the number of times we said asshole and just like put it in the show notes. So let me here's another really quick question about staying in someone else's business. That is, I'm gonna ask you lightning round style because we don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
I came across a Facebook post that made me text a very good friend of mine and just cuss him the fuck out for being such a bar raiser as a husband. His wife posted and said that she woke up on her birthday to the smell of bacon, which she loves, and then his husband sat her down with the kids in front of the TV to start a video, and she was thinking it was going to be some little thing that the kids had made or something, but it wasn't. The backstory is they're both educators, and 7 months ago they were at a professional development training together, where the facilitator had something written in French and asked if anybody knows how to read French. And some guy just did, and he read it, and it sounded perfect and eloquent and smooth, and the crowd went wild, and everybody was super impressed. And he turned to her and said, did that impress you? Were you impressed by that? And she was like, yeah. I thought it was really sexy, and it was really romantic that, to be able to speak French. They never said a word about it again. Never had another conversation about it. Over the next 7 months, during quarantine, being in the same house as each other 24/7 with 3 kids, he figured out how to learn French. He learned French.
That's love.
But then, in the video, he's explaining to her everything I just explained, but he's explaining it to the camera in French. And then he says, learning a language isn't really a birthday present. I wanted to do something to make it special. So I also learned how to play piano. And here's a song. And he plays and sings a song in French.
Oh my gosh.
To her in the video.
That's really love. Yeah.
How he had the time to do that while being a full-time father and husband in the presence of everybody he's in the house with all the time. I don't know. But then my question to you is this.
Yeah.
He did all that for her. He did all that probably... You don't think this was like some form of being in her business, being like, oh, she's going to love it and this is going to be so cool and it's going to knock her socks off. Like, you don't think that was some form of being in her business that motivated him to do all of those things for her?
Well, first of all, those are really heavy things to learn the piano, or at least learn a song if you are so new to music. That's a lot of catching up you have to do. And then to learn French to sort of just have a conversation is incredibly difficult. And so there had to have been something in there for him that sparked his creative side that made him feel love and light. Because if you were clearly just doing that for the other person, it would not be enjoyable. It would not. There have to have been something that fed him. And yeah, it was her business because it was for her, but he is sitting in her business. If he was attached to the outcome and she was just like, oh yeah, great, thanks, honey, and it was like no big deal to her and he was offended by it, that's very much sitting in his business.
I imagine he would have been pretty let down if she wasn't impressed by it, though.
Yeah.
I think any husband, any spouse who goes through that would be a little bit deflated if it didn't blow the other person's socks off. So does that mean that like he was in her business at least a little bit?
Yes, he was.
And is that a bad thing?
Well, see, there you go with that bad thing again. The word bad. No,
because I see people judging. Like I've been contacted by our listeners and by people in our tribe who will like say this thing, and then they will immediately start condemning themselves and saying, "I'm just being in the other person's business," and then it becomes an indictment on them. And but the grievance that they're talking about is like a legit thing that I think it's okay to get worked up about, you know,
right.
like
yes, but the thing is if the model that we're trying to present is yes, that thing, you're only enlightened if you're not going to be attached to an outcome, and that's very difficult to do. And so if you are getting affected by something that someone else does and it appears to be justified, there is something deeper to learn there, though, and trying to control the other person's behavior, make them apologize, getting all angered about it and not forgiving that person, you are staying in their business. So staying in your business doesn't mean that you don't get your feathers ruffled, but staying in your business is asking yourself, why are my feathers ruffled? What is this person like? Why am I experiencing this person this way? And then, because that makes you reactive, because then you can come back and say, look, when you said that or when you did that, this is how it made me feel. Like when I really sat with it for a while, like it was really triggering this in me. And I wanted to share that with you and then hope that would change the other person. Hopefully that would make them apologize. But being able to say that is just staying in your business, and however they take that is not your business.
So let me know if this aligns with what you just said. It's where is the why? If you're looking inward and asking, why are these things happening in me? That's staying in your business. But if you're looking at what someone else is doing and saying, why are they doing that? That's being in their business. Is that?
No, not necessarily. If you're asking, why are they doing that? I think it's like the hysterectomy thing. You are sitting in empathy and trying to recognize without judgment and without attachment why they're behaving the way they are. And to me, that is staying in your business because you are trying to understand your experience with that person. And to me, when I can put on the hysterectomy hat and try to see from their perspective where they're coming from, I find that I am less angry about the situation. Because if I can, I do this a lot with my mother. When my mother triggers me, then I think, if I can say, well, why would she, what's going on in her world that would make her do that? What happened to her that would make her say that? And then all of a sudden I have empathy for my mother instead of being pissed off at my mother. Totally different ways, reactive and responding.
So I guess the question is, how do you know when something is... Because there are a lot of ways in which we in our heads get into other people's heads. And there are ways in which we're qualifying that as being in their business in ways that we're not. Like if you have love for somebody and you're very invested in their happiness and joy and contentment and fulfillment.
Like this man, your friend.
Yes. Then you're going to do things just to produce positive outcomes for that person. And you're going to derive your own joy just from the fact that they are experiencing that outcome. And even sometimes it's not even a big gesture. Like, like I this pilot to this TV program that I got looped into doing that I'm nearly finished on. I'm way past the due date. And I have a good friend who's just like, okay, what is it going to take to get you to get this off your plate? And we actually agreed that I would shave my dreads off if it's not done by the end of tomorrow.
Oh my gosh.
And this person, I feel, is very much in my business because like they don't get anything out of it. They're not going to watch the show. It's not, but they're invested in me getting it off my plate because they see how much it is wearing on me that this isn't done yet, and how much I feel like I'm at the beginning of a race and the thing has started and I'm shackled to the starting line and I have to solve this Rubik's Cube to get unshackled. And I'm just trying to like get it done so I can go do the actual thing, you know, like it's holding me back. And this friend sees that. And so they're putting a lot of energy into helping me get this thing off my plate. And that is all them being in my business.
No, it's not.
How is it them being in their business?
I can be
I don't
in my
see it as
business.
a bad thing though.
He's in his business because he wants to be a supportive friend. That's his business. That's what he can control. So his way, what he can control to be a support to you is give you a challenge. You know, say, be your accountability partner. That's what he wants to do. That's a desire he has to be a supportive friend to you. If he's in your business, then he's feeling anxiety and he's feeling stress and he's feeling the pressure and like, Ryan, do you have that done yet? What are you going to do? Like that would be him sitting in your business. But if he's showing up as a support, but not owning it, then he's in his business.
Is that what it is?
Yes.
You're owning the other person's stuff as though it's your stuff.
Yes.
Is being in their business.
Yes.
I really am trying to like...
I know.
I'm so tired of telling people just stop being in their business and start being in your business because that's so like, it's almost like it's empty, weird.
It is. And
it causes people to judge themselves.
Right.
When they're like, oh, I'm not very good at being in my own business. I'm like, no, you are. You're on the right track. You're motivated by all these things. We just need to update our terms a little bit. So
well,
like,
and we need to educate people. Like if you just say, oh, I'm just sitting in their business and I'm not sitting in mine, that's a judgment on yourself. We have more work to do. Like,
right.
So
you own your stuff. Mm-hmm. Don't own other people's stuff. Mm-hmm. But also don't not own your stuff.
No, own your stuff. Don't carry it around. Don't turn it into baggage. Own your stuff.
But don't avoid owning it.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
Don't not own your stuff.
Right. Yes.
Don't make your stuff their stuff. Mm-hmm. Don't make their stuff your stuff.
And don't deny your stuff.
And don't deny your stuff. Don't own theirs.
Yeah.
Okay. I can see it in Excel. You're speaking to me in Excel now. So now I get it. I have.
Well, and one last thing about your friend, if you were judging him for doing that for his wife, then what you're saying is that you don't feel you are a good enough husband.
I definitely told him that. I said,
good, you owned your stuff.
I said, this was the text. I said, first name, fucking last name, you goddamn bar raising asshole. And he just hit the little laugh emoji. I was like, did you write that song? Okay, he didn't actually write the song. If he wrote the song, I was like, I'm going to pull my hair out. But it was just, he didn't write it. But I mean, I did. I was like straight up like, dude, you're making the rest of us look bad. And I take personal offense at this.
Yes. Here's the crazy twist to all this. This is really hard. And I think this just takes... What we keep coming back to is practice, but that's an extreme example. And yes, we do get a lot of joy out of doing something for somebody else and it makes them so incredibly happy. And I think that's right to have that feeling. And I think that is spreading love and light, but where we're going to get in trouble is if the other person doesn't respond the way we think or want them to, and we get upset about it, then we have a problem. And even in that case, where if she would have been like, yeah, okay, honey, thanks, that's cool, and didn't really like have her mind blown. She would have
no soul.
Right. If she would have had her mind blown, not had her mind blown, then, and he would have been upset about that's a problem. Isn't that crazy? Like in this model, that's a problem if he's upset that she didn't have her mind blown.
That's so weird because I'm not sure. Okay, I'll speak to myself. If I were to do something like that, the thing that would actually fuel me seeing it through to completion would be imagining in my head her reaction.
Yes. Right.
And so without that, I actually no that no I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true because the last big, like, it wasn't even big, but the last gesture I did, I wasn't motivated by their reaction. I was motivated by just imagining them getting to experience it.
That's it.
Interesting.
That's exactly how and why you should do it.
That alone was enough to motivate me to continue to see it through to completion. And I'm realizing it's very difficult for me to get motivated to see a project through to completion. It takes a lot. But okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Wow, we're over time. That's a lot today. That's a lot.
Yeah, I had a feeling that we were just gonna blaze through this one.
Yeah. But I don't think we're done talking about the civil rights situation. I'm going to sit on that for a while.
I don't think we're going to be done talking about it.
Right.
Ever. Right. It's just an ongoing thing. Like, I started posting, anytime I would post on Facebook, I would just add to the bottom, oh yeah, and Breonna Taylor's murderers still aren't behind bars. Like, every single time. Just because it's still a problem.
Yeah.
Right. And my brother is in Japan, and we talked about on the phone a couple nights ago. And he was like, man, getting an outsider's perspective on this is so interesting because this whole same thing happened 4 years ago with Colin Kaepernick and taking a knee. Mm-hmm. And everybody was ablaze about it. Mm-hmm. And everybody was talking about it and nothing happened. Mm-hmm. And he was like, you don't be surprised if nothing happens this time either. Mm-hmm. And then also understand that only in the white world does this seem like a quote unquote this time, because in the non-white world, every day is this time. It's all the same single instance that's lasted 400 plus years, you know?
Right.
And so like, no, I don't think we're ever going to be done talking about it, but it was interesting though that it came up in terms of an abusive relationship, because now I'm framing this as, in my mind, I'm thinking about the relationship between American police and our BIPOC community as though it were an abusive relationship between two people. Mm-hmm. And do those dynamics still work? And I mean, it's a whole lot more complex than that, and it's loaded with a bunch of different stuff, but I never really put those two together in that way. So I can tell that's going to percolate for a while. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to talk to people about it, and they're like, oh yeah, this is what I've been thinking about it from the beginning. And congratulations on getting caught up with the rest of us.
Okay. You talk to good people.
Well, what are you grateful for?
Okay, I'll make this one very quick today. My father-in-law had a second round of surgery yesterday for his bladder cancer, and it went well, and he felt good, and I just got I have a good gut feeling about this one. And so I'm just grateful that everything went well and we were able to spend some time with him last night.
That is wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's such a tricky thing when people are battling that.
Mm-hmm. Especially in these times.
Yeah.
Because he has to do it alone. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Man, God, he has to do it alone.
Yep.
Fuck.
Yep.
Well, the good days are just that much sweeter.
Yeah, absolutely.
I am grateful for my son's teacher at his daycare. We actually talked to her before moving him into her class, and she connected with both of us on a bunch of levels, and we just got really good vibes from her. And she starts every day with a morning hug, and every single time I drop him off, she stops what she's doing. I'm sure she does it with all the kids, but her face lights up, and she's like, "Ah, come in here for a hug!" And she like runs to him, and it's just and that's the start of his school day. Every day is a big, giant, enthusiastic bear hug.
Happy to see you. Yeah.
And so earlier this week, I've been really kind of like mentally not here over the past couple of weeks because there's just been a big download that I'm not ready to talk about yet, and it's all of my mental faculties have just been sucked up there, so I'm stumbling through all my sentences and language is failing me. But so I'm standing there, I dropped him off, she's giving him a hug, and I'm just still standing there, just like staring. and she goes, "I hope you have a great day." And I heard like, "You're still standing here staring at us," and I'm politely telling you to,
you can go now.
Go somewhere else. And And I was like, thanks. I hope you have a great day. And she looked at me with this, like, it was very non-judgmental. But she just kind of had this, like, every day's a great day. Mm-hmm. It was almost like a duh. But it wasn't a mean duh.
Right.
She just looked at me like, oh, every day's a great day. Like, it's
like,
a matter of fact.
Are you kidding? Look at who I get to hang out with. Yeah.
And then I sat there, and again, like, I just kind of, like, took it in, but I forgot to respond or acknowledge it. I was just like, I just went straight into my brain and was like processing it, but still just stayed. And she goes, it's just a matter of choice. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, and that's when I realized I'm in a human body that needs to do things and acknowledge other human bodies. So I was like, oh yes, thank you. And I just left. But I was carrying that around the rest of the day. Like, every day is a great day. It's a matter of choice. And so I'm also grateful for the fact that she starts every one of my kids' days with a big old hug, but just for planting that little seed. And it's I've been sitting with that for a while. So I'm really grateful that she chose to use that as her response to my catatonic hall standing.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Okay, well, that's it for now.
Yeah.
And until next time, thank you for loving me, and thank you for being there. Oh my God.